Atamarie, I invite everybody to take their seats and remain silent as we welcome Jamie back and we listen to our prelude, which is Bach's Little Prelude and Fugue in C major. Ka nui ngā mihi ki ngā mana whenua o tēnei rohi. E o tātou mate, haere, haere, haere atu rā. Tēnā koutou e te whānau o Unitariana o Tāmaki Makaurau, me ngā Unitariana o te ao. Tēnā koutou ngā manuhiri, nau mai, haere mai. Haere mai ki tō tātou whānau. Haere mai ki te hui o te rānei. Haere mai ki tēnei whare tapu, neke atu I te kotahi rautau e nohu tapu ane. Ko Rachel Mackintosh tōku ingoa. Ko te kai kōrero o te rā, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Greetings to the mana whenua of this place. To our dead, farewell, farewell, thrice farewell. Greetings to Auckland Unitarians, Unitarians of the world, and to our visitors. Welcome to those in the building, those on Zoom, and those watching at a later time. Welcome to our whānau. Welcome to this place made sacred by Auckland Unitarians for more than 124 years. My name is Rachel Mackintosh, and I will be leading our service this morning. For those of you in the building, please do join us after the service for morning tea. It is our sacrament of hospitality. Ma mua ka kitea muri, ma muri ka ora mui. Those who lead give sight to those who follow. Those who follow give life to those who lead. Today is International Working Women's Day, and I have entitled today's theme, Nothing is Permanent. I introduce our service with a poem from 19th century Unitarian and poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The poem is entitled, The Tides. I saw the long line of the vacant shore, the seaweed and the shells upon the sand, and the brown rocks left bare on every hand, as if the ebbing tide would flow no more. Then heard I, more distinctly than before, the ocean breathe, and its great breast expand, and hurrying came on the defenceless land the insurgent waters with tumultuous roar. All thought and feeling and desire, I said, love, laughter, and the exultant joy of song have ebbed from me forever. Suddenly o'er me they swept again from their deep ocean bed, and in a tumult of delight and strong as youth and beautiful as youth upbore me. Please, I now invite you, if you wish, to take a moment to close your eyes. Breathe in the possibility of the next tide, and breathe out what is done. Paul, would you mind lighting the chalice for us? So the words for the chalice lighting today are from Michelle Leggett's poetry collection, Milk and Honey. There is the first step to where you are, the bridge of the sun, the bridge of the sea, the bridge of the stones. Yes, I can follow. I know what to do. I walk out to where the sun bridge starts and call over the water. I walk out to where the moon bridge starts and sing the footstep of light. And now I invite you, if you wish, to say with me the covenant of our congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God. We pause at this time to hold and honour the very personal joys and concerns of this gathering. I invite those of you in church to come up, light a candle, say your name, and briefly describe your joy or sorrow. For those on Zoom, raise your hands and I will call on you as I see you. And if we get a good list on either side, we'll alternate between the church and Zoom. I invite you once more, if you wish, to close your eyes and breathe. Breathe in the possibility of tomorrow and breathe out what is done. Our reading this morning is by another Unitarian poet, Emily Dickinson. They shut me up in prose. They shut me up in prose as when a little girl they put me in the closet because they liked me still. Still, could themself have peeped and seen my brain go round, they might, as wise, have lodged a bird for treason in the pound. Himself has but to will, and easy as a star, look down upon captivity and laugh. No more have I. Now we have another song, so I invite you to stand again to sing Bread and Roses. You may know the tune from the movie Pride, or you may just know the tune. And Jamie and I made sure this is the right one, because there's more than one. Nothing is permanent. In 2017, the tide was in. It was a tide of transformation. One small second-hand car dealer in Invercargill sold 40 cars in a month. In Invercargill. The women who bought those cars each had one less worry. The stress of wondering if the old car would get them to the next job without breaking down evaporated. The tension leading up to the 6-monthly warrant of fitness check eased. They could all breathe more easily. They could replace a tyre if it went bald. It was a transformation. The second-hand car dealer also experienced transformation as his income increased dramatically in that month, because he and we are all part of an interdependent web. And he went out to dinner more often, and the local restaurants' takings increased, and so on, and so on. The tide was in because the government had agreed to fund the transformation, after the Supreme Court ruled that care and support work had been historically undervalued because it was predominantly performed by women. The ruling was the final decision from a claim for pay equity under the Equal Pay Act 1972. For those women who bought new cars and for other care and support workers, there were other transformations. The following quotes all come from an academic publication by Julie Douglas and Catherine Ravenswood from the Work Research Institute at AUT. The report is called The Value of Care. One care worker reported, "I went to the dentist after not having been to the dentist for about 6 years. My husband has just retired, and I was able to buy him for his 65th birthday a pair of spectacles, because we haven't had glasses for about 15 years. These transformations were all practical as people's material lives improved. The tide was in, and the tide brought transformations that were spiritual and emotional as well as practical. Because anyone is transformed when their communities, their society, goes from considering them all but worthless to recognising the value of the skills, effort, and responsibility involved in their work. Another support worker said this, "Rather than being just, I'll do it right out of high school in between jobs, it is actually, to me, I look at it as a career path. But actually now, my career, for me, is to be a support worker. And that feels really nice for me to say that, and people really acknowledge it." And in the words of another worker, this is what we, the communities and our society, were acknowledging. "We are working with very vulnerable people. We are not delivering parcels. We are working in often very stressful environments and dealing with people who are also very highly stressed and sometimes chronically stressed because of what is going on in their lives." The method for establishing undervaluation was to measure the skill, effort, and responsibility of the female-dominated job. Then, to measure the skill, effort, and responsibility of comparator jobs done mostly by men. This is the comparator method, to find a male-dominated job where the skill, effort, and responsibility measure the same as the female work. By this method, you can compare the value of quite different jobs. And when you find that male work of equal value to female work is paid much more highly, this gives you your answer, and it gives you the monetary undervaluation. So in 2017, the tide was in. Almost instantly, the tide started to go out again. Workers had their hours cut. Employers stopped employing the most qualified care workers, favouring those on the bottom of the new pay scale. Employers reported that they had not been part of the settlement and that there were practicalities which made it difficult for them to deliver true pay equity. And there was an end date. After 2022, there was no guarantee that the pay rates would be sustained. The government funding had a time limit. Against this undertow, a joint working group of employers, union and government officials convened to bring the tide in again. The outcome of that working group was recommended new legislation to produce true pay equity. Alan MacDonald from the Employers and Manufacturers Association made a submission on the resulting Equal Pay Amendment Bill. He wrote, "The intent and spirit of the joint working group was to produce a relatively easy pathway into a pay equity claim. It was agreed a collaborative approach between employers and employees was the most desirable outcome, and this would be achieved by minimising potential roadblocks in the pay equity claim process for both employees and employers. That intent and spirit of goodwill from all parties was behind the changes recommended. Changes that made it easier to begin the claim process, and we agreed that rather than proscribe the comparators to be used, they would be negotiated by the parties to the claim, again, with the intent of making it easier to reach a claim agreement. And so, with goodwill from all parties, the tide started to come in again. And in 2020, that bill became law with the support of the whole of our Parliament, creating a framework and a pathway for all future pay equity claims. Thousands of social workers, nurses, teacher aides enjoyed huge increases in their pay and the spiritual comfort of knowing that wider society could see the true skill, responsibility, and effort of their work. And then the time limit came for care and support workers who raised a new claim in 2022 under the new legislation to secure pay equity for good. The tide was rising and the negotiations continued. In May 2025, the government pushed the tide out with a rapidity only seen when there is a major earthquake. In less than 48 hours, without consultation, without advice, without any of the normal democratic processes involved in lawmaking, they repealed the 2020 legislation, cancelled 33 active claims, including the claim of the care and support workers, wiped out all review processes that make settlements sustainable, raised the entry bar claims to an impossible level, severely limited what comparators could be used, and declared that no new claims could be brought for the 10 years after a settlement. And they saved $12.8 billion that would otherwise have gone to underpaid workers. And because we are all interconnected, private radio station News Talk ZB provided an amplification for the main narrative tool that had been used inside Parliament to sell the repeal to the public. That tool was to ridicule the comparator system. Heather Duplessis-Allen explained, but the problem is it really isn't. It isn't comparing apples with apples. It's often apples with oranges. For example, librarians. Librarians are currently trying to get a pay rise by comparing themselves to traffic engineers. Now, no disrespect whatsoever to librarians, but the Dewey Decimal System is not that hard. I'm pretty sure that most of us could learn to do it and become librarians in about 20 minutes flat. I think it takes a little bit longer to train up as an engineer who specialises in designing and planning and constructing and operating and maintaining a transport system. And the same goes with the admin health staff who are trying to compare themselves to mechanical engineers. And the same goes with the social workers who are trying to compare themselves to air traffic controllers. You see the trouble here, right? I've never actually listened to Heather Duplessis-Allen, so I don't know if that's how she talks, sorry. The narrative is essentially that it is ridiculous to compare jobs that are different, apples and oranges. But we recognise equal value of different jobs all the time. If I say that the job of a senior doctor and a senior lawyer are worth about the same salary, I am willing to wager that nobody will find that ridiculous. And yet, isn't that oranges and apples? In fact, I am also willing to wager that an analysis would find that the jobs are apples and oranges, and that the main similarity between them is the historical preponderance of penises in the workforce and the similarly high pay. So the tide is out. The reaction to the cancelling of the process and the ridiculing of the system has brought together communities who might otherwise often find themselves on opposing sides of an argument. A group of former MPs from right across the political spectrum, led by ex-National Party MP Marilyn Waring, formed the People's Select Committee to do the job the government should have done and interrogated that 2025 legislation. Their report was released on the 24th of February this year. In that report, we hear the voices of many New Zealanders, a cavalry riding to the support of underpaid and undervalued members of our society. Dame Judy McGregor, former Equal Employment Opportunities Commissioner. The process used to pass this legislation created a new low in New Zealand's constitutional history with its extraordinary disregard for the time-honoured checks and balances for effective legislation. We have the breathtaking spectacle of government ministers pulling out the bricks of parliamentary democracy and legislative integrity. Thousands of women are now condemned to poverty wages. Dame Sylvia Cartwright, former Governor-General. I predict that this issue will become something of significance internationally, and we can't ignore our international reputation. Tracy Martin, head of the employer peak body, the Aged Care Association. We willingly participated in the claim because we believe those caring for older New Zealanders deserve to be paid in a way that reflects both the real cost of providing that care and the true value of the work that they do. Yet while we were doing that, the government was already moving behind closed doors to get cabinet approval to end all current pay equity claims, including ours. No discussion, no public input. Working groups were kept in a holding pattern with repeated excuses, further straining already underfunded providers. And from care worker Vicky. Vicky said his level 4 care role was clinically like that of a nurse, but his pay was similar to that of a warehouse worker who did not have to face death threats nor have responsibility for someone's life. We are treated like shelf packers instead of healthcare professionals. The recommendations of the People's Select Committee include the repeal of the 2025 legislation and the restoration of a system that can bring justice and that can be transformational. So the tide is out. The low tide has exposed jagged rocks that may tear us up. In the People's Select Committee, the low tide also exposed the richness of the life that teems in rock pools. We can see people working together, adding their diverse voices to the tide that must rise. Nothing is permanent, including low tides. What can we do to bring the tide in again? As Unitarians, we value love, equity, transformation, and justice. What will you do? Amen. Now I invite you again to take a moment to close your eyes. Breathe in the possibility of the rising tide and breathe out what is done. Now, Paul, would you mind? Thank you. I invite you to say with me the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Okay. In a moment, I will read closing words, which are very brief, and then Jamie intended to play this one on the piano. The postlude is Brahms' Intermezzo Opus 118, number 2, which is a piece that Brahms wrote for a prolific female piano composer. And after that, I invite people to have discussion groups, and our question starter, which will be on the screen, is what have you heard that struck a chord, made you uncomfortable, reassured you, and what will you do to live our values of justice, transformation, and interdependence? Oh, closing words. May we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? And if not now, when? Amen.
Just a bit of history for this piece. So Robert Schumann had just passed away, and the unfortunate widow, Clara Schumann, who was also a very prolific pianist throughout her life, and Brahms wrote this intermezzo, I guess, in memory of Robert Schumann for her to play. A lot of grief, a lot of sorrow, but a lot of hope. Other themes within this piece. Thank you.